This is the first card in our 5 cards with one easy layout card class in the mail for August. Thank you so much for joining me with this month for this fabulous card design. It's so easy to make. It looks complicated, but it is really easy. So let's get started. Take the smaller 2 pieces of designer series paper and apply some adhesive to the back. And these 2 small pieces are going to go right on the front on these smaller pieces that we folded out. Just like that. Take the 2 larger pieces of designer series paper, put a little bit of adhesive on the back of each one, and these are going to go on this part of the card on the front. And that is how easy it is to complete the entire card base with the folds and the designer series paper. So now you can set this aside. Take the narrow piece of smoky slate cardstock, put one end at the center of the card, and then just use your fingers to fold it over the card like this. And then I like to use the shorter piece on top like that. Take your adhesive and put some right on that part right there. Fold it over and let that dry for a second. And now take the square piece of Petal Pink cardstock, the gorgeous piece of marble looking designer series paper, and the square vellum doily, and we are just going to layer these on top of each other. So put a little bit of a tiny bit of adhesive on the marble piece of designer series paper, and then on the doily, I just like to put a tiny bit of glue on these wider parts of the vellum. Just like that, and adhere that to the center. Like that. Now to complete the belly band, you can bring your card back in, and then just here at the center you can use some multi-purpose glue, or if you would like a stronger hold, you can use some tear and tape adhesive on this design out of the 5 different cards that we are going to make today. So you can just put some tear and tape adhesive in the center like this, if you would like to, and then take the layers that you just made and adhere this. Now let's come back to the card base and the belly band, and we're going to take these 2 pieces. There is a narrow piece of Whisper White cardstock, and we're going to just put a little bit of adhesive on there and center that on top of the belly band. It's going to go to the edges on each side. It's the same length as the belly band, but you'll see that there's a little border at the top and the bottom. And then we're gonna do the same thing with the narrow piece of Petal Pink cardstock. It's the same length as the belly band, but you'll see that there's a border at the top and the bottom, and we're gonna adhere it like that. So this is what you'll end up with, and the belly band will look like that. Then take the piece of ribbon and tie it in a bow off to the side of the belly band. And you should have plenty of ribbon. I made sure that I cut them extra long for you, so you have a lot of ribbon to work with. Okay, so you will end up with this, and just slide that up to put it in the center. Now let's take the layers that we made previously, add some adhesive to the belly band, Now you can add adhesive like I did there, or you can also add, that's the multi-purpose glue, or you can also add tear and tape adhesive if you would like just reassurance that it's really adhered to the belly band. Either one will work, but I just wanted to show you that you can do both. And then we're going to center that on top of the belly band just like that. So now the card base and the layer is complete. So now we're gonna work on the stamping. We're going to use this beautiful peony image on this card, and then the small leaf and the larger leaf for this card. So you're going to stamp in Memento ink, stamp the large peony image, and then stamp a large leaf and a small leaf. A large leaf and a small leaf. You'll notice that the paper that I provided, the cardstock in your pre-cut supplies, this is our thick Whisper White cardstock, and it works perfectly because after you use this die cut and the two different leaf die cuts to cut these images out with your die cut machine, we are going to color in the images with our Stampin' Blends, and the thick Whisper White cardstock absorbs the ink from the alcohol-based Stampin' Blends much better than our regular white cardstock. So on the stem, I used, this is light gray granite, and it kind of gives a really, really light, even though it's gray, it kind of looks like it's a light tan, so you can get away with it for using it as the stem. And then for the leaves, I am using light soft seafoam, but you can also use light mint macaroon if you have that one. Instead, there's a subtle difference between the two colors. So it's just whichever one you have, whichever one you grab first. I think I just grabbed this one first. But either of the green colors blends perfectly with the grays and the petal pink that are used in the designer series paper for all of the cards that we are making today. And then just color in the flower, and I have some already done for you. So there's the flower already colored in, and here are the leaves already colored in. So then I use my die cuts and cut them out. So let's go back to our card, and we are just going to put some of our adhesive on our big peony flower and adhere that to the center at an angle, and then take the small leaf, and I tucked that one just under here, just to give it some more dimension. And then I took the larger one and put that under here, and that's all there is to it. I left the sentiment off because you can add whatever sentiment you need at the time. You might need a sympathy card, a birthday card, a get well card, whatever sentiment you want to add to it. After you finish putting the image on with the leaves, you're going to take your Wink of Stella pen and just lightly add some of the Wink of Stella glitter to the top of the image to give it a subtle, subtle, glittery look to the card. This is the masculine card, and we're gonna start with the gray granite cardstock, which is already scored for you. So let's fold that in, and then the top two you're gonna fold out. Take your bone folder and just go over the creases to make them nice and crisp. Take the two smaller pieces of designer series paper and add a little bit of adhesive and adhere them to the outside flaps. Take the larger 2 pieces of Designer Series paper, add your adhesive, and adhere them to this larger area on the front. And that's your card base. Take the long, narrow piece of gray granite cardstock, put the end in the center of the card, fold it over, and just use your fingers to smush it. Like that, and then you can remove it and use your bone folder to make those score lines nice and crisp. I like to adhere it with the cut in the center instead of like that. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of adhesive right there and stick that down. Take the narrow piece of smoky slate cardstock, add a little bit of adhesive, and adhere it to the center of the belly band that you just created. Take the rectangle piece of smoky slate cardstock and adhere that to the belly band. And be careful to not do what I just did, was put too much adhesive on it, because you see how it went over the band. It's easier and works better if you put the glue directly onto the belly band. You can then slide the belly band onto the card and set that aside. In your supplies, you're going to have one, if you look closely, one larger piece of thick Whisper White cardstock, and then there are going to be 9 pieces of the same size. So on the one that is shaped differently, we are going to stamp the sentiment in Memento ink. And this says, "My thoughts are with you." This is the stamp that I used on this card. So we're going to just stamp that in the center in the black Memento ink, and we can set that aside. There are 2 different leaf stamps in this stamp set, Prize Peony. One is slightly larger than the other one. So we're going to take 4 of our 9 pieces and stamp 4 large leaves in the center, because you are going to use your die cut to cut these out. So just stamp them in the center. And then take the remaining 5 pieces and the smaller leaf stamp and stamp 5 small leaves. So now you'll have 4 large leaves and 5 small leaves, and you're going to use these 2 dies to cut out the leaves. Just run them through your die cut machine and cut those out. After you've die cut those out, you're going to take your light soft seafoam or light mint macaroon Stampin' Blend and just color them in. So now you will have your card base, your belly band, the sentiment, 4 large leaves and 5 small leaves. So now take the sentiment and put some adhesive just in the center of the sentiment and adhere that to the center of the belly band. And then using your adhesive, just take the leaves and pretend that these have adhesive on them, and just lay them around how you think they look the best. I put too large there, too large at the bottom. I don't have any adhesive on these because I just want to show you how you can play around with them before you stick them down to make them look how you want to look. If you want, you can put some up there, however you want to do it. I think I like this better over here. And then you can just take them off and add your adhesive. And that is the masculine card. On this card, you're actually going to use your Stampin' Blends to color in the Designer Series paper that goes on this card. You'll see that you have pre-cut. There are 2 of these and 2 of the smaller pieces, and they are black and white. So what I did was I took the same markers, the Petal Pink, light gray granite, and light soft seafoam, and I just colored in the images. The stems are the light gray granite. So you just want to do this on the entire piece of Designer Series paper, on all of them. Just color in the stem and then color in the leaves with the light soft seafoam, and color in the flowers with the light petal pink, and that's how you end up with this gorgeous, gorgeous Designer Series paper. After you're finished coloring in the Designer Series paper, you can set these pieces aside for a second and take the piece of gray granite cardstock, fold it on the score lines, and use your bone folder to make the score lines nice and crisp. Fold that one in and the smaller one out, the larger one in and the smaller one out. And then take the smaller pieces of the Designer Series paper, add some adhesive to the back, and adhere these to the front. Make sure that they are going in the right direction when you adhere them. You want your flowers growing up, like that. So the smaller pieces on the top and then the larger pieces on this piece here. And you are done with the card base. Now take the narrow piece of Petal Pink cardstock, put one in the center, use your fingers to fold it around the card like that. And then I like to put the shorter piece on top so that it ends in the center. You can remove it, grab your bone folder, and just on the places where you folded it with your finger, just use your bone folder to give it a nice, crisp score line. Add some adhesive to the inside and fold it over and let that dry. Take the piece of mint macaroon narrow paper that is in there, add some adhesive, and you are going to put this in the center of the belly band. It is cut to go to the ends of the belly band, but there's a border at the top and the bottom, just like that. You're going to stamp 3 of the smaller peony images with your Memento ink, black Memento ink, and then you're going to use the corresponding die to cut those out. This is the die that you're going to use to cut 3 of the smaller peonies out, and when you're done, you will have 3 of these, which you will color in with, you'll color the leaves with the light soft sea foam Stampin' Blend, and you'll color the flower in with the light petal pink Stampin' Blend. Now let's take our card base and let's add the belly band to it. And we aren't going to add any layers to this card. We are just going to flip the doily sideways so that the points, instead of being square, it's like this. And we will add some adhesive to the same center pieces like that, and just adhere it to the belly band. Then you're going to take your 3 flowers, and if you see on my sample here, the 2 outside flowers I glued directly over the doily and the belly band, and the center one I adhered with dimensionals. So let's go ahead and, actually I think what I might do, and you might want to do this too, instead of using the liquid adhesive on these flowers, I am going to use my tear and tape adhesive to give the 2 outer flowers just a little more strength, because this card is a little more curved. So we will add 1 to the side here like that, and we'll add another 1 to the other side, and then we will use 2 Stampin' Dimensionals in the center of the 3rd flower, and we will just pop that one up right in the middle like that. And that's how you make that card. Now we're going to work on this card, which has 2 of the medium-sized peonies and a small peony in the middle. Take your gray granite cardstock, fold it in on the score line, use your bone folder to make it nice and crisp. Take the smaller scored portion and fold it out. Fold it in. Oops. Fold it out. Take the 2 narrow pieces of Designer Series paper, flip them over, add your adhesive, and adhere those to the small areas on the front. And then take the wider pieces of Designer Series paper, flip them over, add the adhesive, and put them on the other part of the front of the card. And that is the first part of the card base. Take the narrow strip of cardstock and place one end in the center. Use your fingers to fold it over, just like that. And then use your bone folder to go over those fold marks to make them nice and crisp. And add your adhesive to the longer piece, and then fold over so the shorter piece is on top. And then you can add the belly band over your card. Take the long, narrow piece of Whisper White cardstock, add some adhesive, and you can attach this to the top of the belly band. It is measured to go the entire width of the card, but you're gonna notice that there's a border at the top and the bottom of the belly band. Take the square doily, add some adhesive to the center, and place that in the center of the belly band like that. And now we're finished with the card base and this part of the belly band, so we can set this aside to dry while we work on the flowers. On the thick Whisper White cardstock, you're going to stamp 2 of the peony flower that doesn't have any stem or any leaves on it. It's just the flower. And then the small peony flower, 3 large leaves, and 3 small leaves. Then run those through your die cut machine. After you die cut them, you're going to use the light petal pink Stampin' Blend to color in the flower, and either the soft sea foam or the mint macaroon to color in the 4 leaves, the 4 big leaves and the 3 small leaves. Let's get our card base back in here, and now we're going to take the 2 larger flowers and make sure you don't put any adhesive on the part that's going to stick onto the card. You only want to put the adhesive on the part that's going to stick to the belly band, so you'll be able to slide the belly band on and off. So we'll adhere those to each side, and then we'll take the smaller one and we will take, we can use a Stampin' Dimensional, or you can just adhere it down. I'll use a Stampin' Dimensional here just to give it a little bit of lift, and we're going to place that one in the center. And then you're just going to play around with the leaves and adhere them however you would like, whatever you think looks the best. Just place them and then adhere them around the flowers like that. And then you can use your Wink of Stella to add a really soft layer of glitter to the flowers and the leaves. And then we want to take the Elegant Faceted Gems, and I used, you'll see on this card here, I used the petal pink in the center of the flower. The flower on this card, when you look at the different dies that you need to use to make this flower, it looks very, very difficult, but it's really easy like everything else. So let's just start off at the beginning and let's just make the card base. So let's fold in. Use our bone folder to make a crisp crease. Fold out, fold in, fold out. Take the 2 smaller pieces of Designer Series paper, and we're using the gray side on these. Add your adhesive and adhere these to the smaller scored portion of the card front. And you might notice that there is an up and a down, so just be careful and just use your preference to make sure that they're going in the same direction. Okay, and then take the wider pieces and adhere these to the other part of the front of the cardstock. And this is the first part of the card base. So we can set that aside. So grabbing the card base again, take the piece of gray granite cardstock, put the end in the center, use your fingers to bend it over on both sides. Whoops, this one is a little too long. I think I forgot to cut it at the 10-inch mark. So just trim it there, and we are going to add a little bit of adhesive here. And let's adhere that down, just like that. Take the piece of petal pink cardstock, let's add the adhesive to the center of the belly band, and we will put the small piece of petal pink cardstock in the center of the belly band like that. Now take the vellum doily put some adhesive in the center. It doesn't really matter what adhesive you use because the flower is going to cover up where you put the adhesive, but we're gonna turn it on its side and place this in the center, just like that. And now we can set this aside to dry while we work on the gorgeous flower for the center. For the flower, take the larger piece of Whisper White cardstock, and you're going to use this die, the ones that look really funky and make you think, what in the world is that for? This one, which reminds me of the candelabra from Beauty and the Beast, and this one. And you're gonna run this through your die cut machine. After you run it through your die cut machine, you're gonna have this large, which obviously looks like a flower. Then there's going to be this piece here, this smaller piece, and this piece. So what you wanna do is let's take the two larger pieces, and this is how you put the flower together. You just wanna think from big to small. So take the big flower and just kind of bend up the bottom like that. Take the next size and you're gonna slip it in to the bottom of the first one like that. And then flip up this bottom like that. Take the next smaller size and slip it in there like that. And let's pop in that piece like that. And then we'll take the final piece and put that in just like that. And that is how you build the flower. Now, you wanna make sure that the bottom of it is all even. So then after you put all the pieces together, you can just play with it and move it around a little bit so that it ends up looking like this. It's okay if a little bit sticks out the bottom, but you just wanna play with it like that. So let me just take it apart and we'll do it one more time. After you die cut the pieces, put them in order from largest to smallest. Take the largest piece, flick up the bottom. Take the next largest piece, flick up the bottom, and stick it inside. So now you have two pieces coming towards you, I guess, and then two pieces facing down on your desk. Take the next piece, the third piece, put it in the bottom. Press the top piece with the other two, and then flick out the bottom piece. So now you have three coming towards you and three facing down on the desk. And then take the final piece and just stick that in there. Close it up and then just play with it around the bottom and slide them up to make it look like the flower. There are some rather strange looking dies in the peony dies, and I'm showing you here what each die is for. So this one makes this leaf like that. This one here makes this leaf, and this one here makes this leaf. And then these make a dimension of the leaf, and this makes a center of the flower. So if you look at these here, the larger one fits on the bottom of this flower and adds dimension to the leaf. And then we have the center one, which is the next size, and that fits on there like that. And then we have the smallest one, which fits on the smallest leaf like that. And that's what those are for. So now that you have your flower made, you can take the little center of the flower and adhere that anywhere you would like, just so that it is in the middle. Now take the leaves and let's add a little bit of adhesive to the outline piece. And we will just line that up like so at the bottom, and we will do that for all 3 of these. Just a little dot of adhesive, and just line it up like that. And then let's take the tiny one and we will do the same thing. Just a little dot of adhesive, and we'll line that one up. Oh, it was a little bit too much. There we go. So now you have your leaves put together and you have your flower put together. Now you'll notice that the flower is white, and we really want to make that flower pop. So I took my Stampin' sponge and I dipped it into the ink, and then I just sponge around the edges like this, and it just gives a beautiful dimension to the flower. And now that I have the flower all complete, I can go ahead and just add a teeny bit of adhesive there, and just a little bit more underneath, just to make sure that the pieces stay in place. And now I'm gonna take my mint macaroon plastic pad, my sponge, and I'm gonna do the same thing here to the edges of the leaves, just to add some dimension. This is, I guess, called the sponge and ink technique. I don't know. Just really easy. We can get back to our card base with our belly band now that our flower is all finished. And we can just put some adhesive on the back of the flower and adhere that to the center of the card, and then take the leaves, put a tiny bit of multi-purpose glue, and then just adhere these randomly wherever you would like to the side of the flower. And once again, I did not add a sentiment because I'm going to save this card and use it when an occasion arrives, like a wedding or a get well or a sympathy card.